Good evening, YouTube. This is Kaylin Stern coming at you with my regular Sunday night dinner. And as I bring up the stream on my tablet, I will remind you all that next Sunday I will not be live because I will have absolutely no idea when I'm going to be coming back from the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow, which I will be volunteering with, doing kids crafts. I will get there sometime Friday. I'll work on setup. Then after the event ends Sunday afternoon between 6 and 6:30 or whenever, then we start working on packing stuff up that can be immediately moved out that evening, leaving only the teepees, the canopies, and other large parts of our setup to be taken out on Monday. And that is at a park called Jester Park. It is in an adjoining county, or it's outside of Des Moines. It's in not an immediately adjacent suburb, but outside of that. So it's in the town of Granger, Iowa. So I will be streaming 2 weeks from tonight. So I'll decide next week, or after I get back from the powwow, for the last Sunday of the month, I will decide what I'm going to be getting into. But for tonight, it's the rest of this 2019 pack First Strike ration. So have the tuna. This is albacore in water. To go along with that, this is the fat-free mayonnaise. And then I got this out of my kitchen. This is a pickle relish. So this is the vanilla drink powder, which was original to the ration. I am not going to use it. I'm going to save that for another time. This is the Recovery Trail Mix. These are the 2 pieces of the thick beef jerky. This is the Italian breadsticks. And to go on top of the Italian breadsticks, I went and grabbed a cheese spread. And I got this lemon lime drink powder. The orange was in the ration when I got it, so this came out of my stash. And then the last thing is the cinnamon zapple sauce. forgot to get my water bottle for mixing the drink, but I will go ahead and open up the pouch. This time it was sealed at the top. Sometimes these are not, which is not good. Because I'll be done with this ration, I'm putting all the trash into the ration bag. Burger Butt and Burger Butt, to Carlos Perry in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I just went into the kitchen to get my water. I'm going to have a G7 tonight. So what I'm going to do is after I mix up my coffee, I'm going to put my breadsticks on top of that, and that will warm them up, plus keep the heat in the mug. So that's how I'm going to do that. That sucks. It really stinks to get stood up like that from someone you hoped you could count on. It'd be nice to be able to do something about that, but unfortunately, we're not that good. Anyway, I'm going to go get the hot water, and then that will be all the prep that would be needed. I just took the kettle back into the kitchen to get it out of the way. Our fishy friend is here. My crusher is here. Thanks for dropping in. I got the breadsticks on top of my mug. This recovery trail mix, what they did is they put the tear notch on the side They include an oxygen absorber. I just have everything off to the side. I'm just grabbing it to open it up. Now I'm going to open up the beef sticks. Let's see how these are packaged. Individually packaged inside of the outer wrapper. Bull's brand. And you can peel these open just like the outer package because of the way they treated the top. Sweet barbecue flavor. I bet when they put this menu together, they added the beef sticks to increase the protein, since, you know, for a ration like this you would want extra protein. I flipped the breadstick pouch over. Now I'm opening up the cinnamon applesauce. Cinnamon will give it a darker color. Knock that off. Yeah, some brands are just not cut it for these. They probably got the cheapest ones they could get. That would be my guess. But this tuna, this albacore, 17 grams of protein. I do like that. What I'm doing is I'm pushing the tuna down below the top where the tear notch is. And I got a bowl. To mix it in. It's probably about as good as that's going to get. That didn't work. Here we go. There's a multi-magnum in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I'm actually quite surprised that this menu did not include the tortillas for at least putting the tuna and mayonnaise mixture on, but it's Took by V in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I'm finishing up this 2019 First Strike ration. I used my coffee mug to warm up the breadsticks. So I'm going to move the beef sticks over here. I'm going to put the breadsticks here. Give you a close-up look as what the top looks like. And that's what the bottom looks like. That's what they look like on the inside. Still some cheese spread left in the packet. I'll probably end up just sucking that out. There's Tim Riley in the house. Thanks for dropping in. So I added the fat-free mayonnaise to the tuna, and I added a little packet of the sweet pickle relish that I had in my kitchen. I brought out the cheese spread for the breadsticks, and instead of the vanilla shake, I decided to go with a lemon lime drink and a T7 coffee. Everything else is original to the ration. Again, next Sunday I will not be live because I may still be on the road coming back from the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow. I've been volunteering with doing kids crafts for several years, and I'll soon be starting my second year on the organizing committee. As in November of last year, I presented a collapsible wagon to them. Because Amazon screwed up and I ended up getting two, and they said I could keep them both, but I decided nope. I think these guys could use one for moving stuff around, loading and unloading, and not just for the powwow, but any other events that they do. So I gave them one, and I kept the other, and I marked mine with an S on all four sides, and on the storage cover. So we actually have both of them to use to help move stuff around, and that has definitely made a difference because they have been thinking about getting one, and then I show up with one. So Amazon's loss is their game. Now, that song has been around for a long time. Those of us who grew up in the year after that song was first published, yeah, we have been around a little bit longer, know about it. Yep, today actually did not get as hot as originally forecast, which is nice. It only got up to 89 today. Yesterday got up to 95 or 96. We had an International Food Day at the mosque yesterday, and I made compote, a blueberry compote. I actually made that Friday, and then that spent all night chilling in the fridge, and then I served it. Not a lot of people took it, but what I'm going to do tomorrow is I'm going to take some large capacity Ziploc bags. I'm going to transfer it from the pot that I made it in into those bags, and then I'll put them in the freezer and let them freeze there like for a couple of days. That freezer there gets down to -7. That's where it's set at. And then maybe in a couple of days I'll pick them up and bring them home, and I will take it with me to the park where the powwow will take place at Jesser Park. Tim would know about that place. And then it will be allowed to thaw, or at least it'll start to thaw. Right now my freezer does not have a whole lot of room. But at least for the time being, I could probably move some things to my fridge and then put them back in the freezer after I get back. Or when I'm ready to pack up to go there, I can move stuff back to the freezer. Now this fat-free mayonnaise, it has a bit of a weird taste to it, but the tuna definitely covers up that weird taste. It's that whatever they use to replace the fat in it. I've tasted other foods that had that, they call it olestra. It was supposed to be a fat substitute. A lot of people had issues with that. And that tiny bit of the pickerel that went in there also helps cover that up. I think they realized that was causing too many problems, and they just had to get rid of it. But I have seen more of the packets of the regular mayonnaise. So I have packets of both, and I'm going to do a direct comparison of the two versions. Plus I have those picante powders when it says picante. And then the hot sauce powder, I have a couple of different those packets of those. And the chili flake, that's just straight up chili. That's not with the vinegar or garlic or anything like that. That's just straight up chili flake in there. I'm going to go ahead and try one of these beef sticks. They're very, very oily. See the shine on my hand. That is what it looks like on the inside. There's definitely a lot of red color in there. The flavor is not that great. It's almost like a much finer chopped meat than actual beef jerky. It says sweet barbecue, but I'm really not getting a whole lot of that flavor. Yeah, it's more like a compressed beef stick. Because with real beef jerky, you're getting the long fibers of the meat, where this has been chopped and then pressed together. Of course, I will finish these off. They're not so bad that I can't eat them. But they're definitely not Jack Link's. Yeah, if you lived in a place like that, you would definitely want to be okay with heights, because you would be so far up above the ground. Thanks for dropping in, John. Hope to see you in a couple of weeks. If I'm going to figure out what I'm going to do in a couple of weeks. I got a couple of Canadian IMPs. I got 2022 and 2024 pack MREs. I got some halal ones. Those are what I got in stock right now. Now that I have the ratatouille, I may go ahead and open that one up. And that has been a menu that I have been wanting to get a hold of ever since I first heard about it. But I have not seen very many reviews of it. Of course, that's been discontinued for a number of years. I'm going to try a little something just for the heck of it. See if the cheese helps this beef stick any. Definitely makes it taste saltier. Stir my lemon lime drink one more time. Yeah, that should do. There's Emily in the house. Thanks for dropping in. Very early Monday morning over there on the other side of the pond. This is the recovered trail mixed with the almonds and peanuts and the pretzel balls. Could be bacon strips, but there may be ingredients in there that would not be good for dogs. So personally, I would not risk it. And the cheese spread does not do this any favors. Of course, if you put this in an animal trap, a live animal trap, you're wanting to attract a nuisance animal and catch it in a trap to release it elsewhere, this would probably make a good bait. I've done that too. but only with dry dog and cat food. At one time, when I was little, we had a dog that would not eat any dog food whatsoever, but cat food, yeah, that dog was all over the cat food. So they both ate out of the same bowl, basically. Yeah, they probably use a hardtack recipe as a base and then put that other stuff inside it. I wouldn't be surprised. Here is CR in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I added a couple of things from my stash to this. I had a little packet of pickle relish that I put in with the tuna and the fat-free mayonnaise. That relish and the flavor of the albacore tuna both overcome that weird flavor of the fat-free mayonnaise. So I just happened to have it in there. I thought, you know what, I'm going to have a little fun with this. I brought out cheese spread for the breadsticks, and I got a lemon lime electrolyte drink in the drinking jar. Got G7 3-in-1 coffee in the delicious mug. Now this recovery trail mix, it does not taste like it's old. It tastes very fresh. Yeah, it's lemon lime, not just straight lemon, but, you know, it's a good pairing with the tuna. This is Cinnamon's applesauce there. And these beef sticks, they definitely went on the cheap with these. I'm still going to finish them off though. I changed the recipe slightly. These would probably make a good dog treat or bait for a nuisance animal trap. That's That's a good thing because that could definitely get a pup into trouble. There's got to be something going on that would make a dog want to eat their own or another animal's crap. Yeah, that I agree with there because all the cats I've lived with have done that. And Pumpkin is always trying to paw at some of the marks on my bathroom floor or the ones on the kitchen floor that were here when I moved in. Yeah, she thinks it's something that she can play with, like a bug or something, or just some random object, but she gets frustrated when she can't put one of her claws into it or move it. And I kept telling her that there's nothing down there for the kitty. Mila was not quite that bad. She actually preferred moving targets. When she was younger, if there was a bug that was moving around close to within her grasp, she'll go after it. And she has actually killed a few. They both have killed mice. I have not had too many, but when I had Mila at the previous place, I think she killed 2 or 3 mice, and in here she got a couple when we had a much bigger mouse problem, and then Pumpkin got one. Others I caught in traps. But yeah, they were both moderately successful in taking care of mice. But Pumpkin will go after an insect, but she chases, or she tries to chase stains or marks on the floor. Of course, Mila would hear a helicopter fly over. She would be trying to figure out where it is. A plane flies over. She didn't give a flip. Pumpkin doesn't react to either of those, but she'll react to other noises. If someone vacuums the hall, she'll go by the door and listen. If she hears certain other noises, sometimes when people are going in and out of the stairwell, she'll go by the door and listen. Sometimes not. But any other unusual sounds, if she's awake, she'll react to them. Uh, what you could do, if you didn't want to do it on such a large scale, you could still do it on a smaller scale. My younger nephew actually breeds mice for the snakes that he raises. He breeds mostly corn snakes, and he has a few others, but mostly corn snakes. And if he gets a certain color variant in a snake, he may breed for that particular color variant, or he may breed another color to maybe get a different color variant. And he can get several $100s per snake after they have hatched from their eggs. He also breeds geckos, but what he does after the mice get to a certain size, depending on the size of the snake that he's going to feed it to, he will dispatch and freeze them. And he also breeds and dispatches and freezes rats to those who have larger snakes that need that size of a meal. Then for his geckos, he breeds crickets. And he feeds them to the geckos. So you could go that route and start off with some breeders and then raise them, and then just continue that to supplement the cat's food. Or maybe use them to kind of develop that hunting instinct. Yeah, that would be a problem. My nephew has a dedicated space where he breeds his mice, rats, and crickets. That's in a separate room from where the snakes and geckos are. He may also supply some of them to the zoo that he and his wife work at to feed the snakes there. I don't know if they have geckos at the zoo. I have not yet been to the Blank Park Zoo. I need to get over there. But I just haven't done it, and I've lived here more than long enough. Yeah, you could start off with frozen and then let it thaw. That's what my nephew does with the youngest snakes that are starting out on. He will hand feed them. When they're ready for their first meal, they usually get either very small or maybe half at a time, and he usually does it with pair of tweezers. And he's kind of maneuvering it to try to get the snake to go after it. Now that could be an option too. Some people who have worm bins, if they get too many worms but not enough place to put them, they probably use some of them for fishing. That's one thing I have not even considered trying to do here, is put worms in my compost. Pretty much 99.9% of it is plant matter. I have a few. I've tossed some salmon bones, salmon skins in there. And then somehow a chicken bone fell onto my deck from up above me. Fell in between the deck boards on the third floor deck. So I just let it completely dry out for a long time. And then I just tossed it in the compost, and then I put eggshells in there. And there's a bird that had a nest not too far, and a couple of eggs have landed on my deck, so they went into the compost. And a couple of those eggs were probably not much bigger than that almond. Or maybe about as big as one of these, but egg shaped. And that was it. So I just added that into the compost. Yeah, the bones will be good calcium, but I usually don't put other bones in my compost because they probably had some kind of oil on them that would not be good for the compost. So I just have never done it other than a few salmon bones. I had some mussels at one time, so I broke up the mussel shells and added those to the compost as well. This was a few years ago since I'd done that. Yep, that's another reason why I generally don't add other bones into my compost, because that meat would have been salted. And yesterday when I came home from the International Food Day that we had at my mosque, I brought home some hummus that had some olives in it. I thought about trying to rinse the olive seeds off, putting them in the compost, but nope. I decided to go ahead and trash those seeds instead of trying to. I knew I wouldn't be able to save them because of the way the olives are processed. Not that I could grow a tree anyway. But I would barter those seeds with someone who could. But I just decided to toss them simply because of the way olives are processed after they've been picked. I figured the brining process, however long they sit in the brine, could affect those seeds. And the salt would permeate those seeds, so that's why they're in the trash. Yeah, me being up here in Iowa, not so much. Yeah, because it can get pretty darn cold here. Although not as early as it used to. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, back in the 80s and 90s, a local TV station used to have a first snow contest, and whoever got closest to predicting the first snow, if it fell before October 31st, would have won a snowblower. But as time went on, there just was not any snow in October, and they obviously couldn't give a snowblower away because they had no result to base that contest on, so they just stopped it. Here's Waffles in the house. Thanks for dropping in. I'm finishing off is 2019 First Strike Menu 8 with a few additions for my stash. Yeah. Well, next Sunday I will not be live because I will most likely still be on the road coming back into Des Moines from the park where the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow will take place next weekend. Yeah. After it ends, we spend a lot of time starting to pack up things that can be taken away that night. And then the breakdown of the teepees and canopies and vendor booths and the kitchen area. That all gets taken down on Monday, the 22nd. So setup will actually begin on Tuesday. You know, it always takes longer to set up than to break down because you got to take time to match up the right teepee poles with the different teepees that will be put up. You want to set things up, see if you like the layout, see if you have to tweak the layout. And our sound system is getting some upgrades, so that has to be all worked out. Plus it's supposed to rain on Tuesday and Wednesday, maybe Thursday, so they're going to have to do that in between the rain showers. And I will go out there Friday. You know, one of the other committee members will come pick me up and take me out there Friday, along with the stuff that I'm going to be contributing for the event. But when I do get a little downtime in between crowds of kids at the craft tables, I will grab some pictures and some video of some of the performances. Have some of that Cinnamon's applesauce. Definitely cinnamon. That's a good amount of cinnamon in there, and I like that. So I will get as much of that as I can. We won't start opening up the kids' crafts for the kids to come Saturday until maybe 10 o'clock. And then the same on Sunday. So what I will most likely be doing before then is helping the kitchen crew get breakfast ready for the volunteers and the vendors and the performers. In fact, I will be sharing my blueberry compote with them, left over from our food festival yesterday at the mosque. So I'm going to repackage that up for freezing. That way I can wash the pot that it has been sitting in since I made it Friday afternoon. Thanks for dropping in, Waffles. Yeah, kompot is Polish. The English word compote, which is probably also derived from French because of the spelling of that. It's basically simmered fruit, usually berries. I use blueberries, but I had a few strawberries here. I want to go ahead and I rinsed them off. I cut the tops off. I quartered them. A few of the bigger ones I cut in a few more pieces. And then I froze them. And then I took my frozen berries plus some dried blueberries. And I had some cloves. That container of cloves that I showed in my shopping haul, I used that whole thing. And then I just used a shake of cinnamon from what the mosque had. And then I only added maybe a third of a cup of sugar, between a third and a half a cup of sugar for, it was probably about 3 gallons. By the time I added some cold water after I took it off the stove to start it cooling down. And then after a few hours, I put it in the fridge to chill overnight. And I left the berries in there. Yeah, I started with the dried berries. I let them simmer for probably about a half hour, 45 minutes. And then I added the frozen blueberries and the strawberries, which probably only equaled about a cup of cut strawberries. You know, I added the sugar, cloves, and cinnamon. First with the dried berries, and then a couple of spoonfuls more of sugar later on, after I had put in the frozen berries, and I just dumped them in frozen. I didn't bother to thaw them out. I figured they'll be thawed out anyway. And then I just let that simmer for probably another hour or so. I really didn't time it. But then it was ready to go into the fridge after someone had brought milk to mix up another drink that I made called Mangalassi. The version that I made of that uses ice cream, whole milk, and mango pulp. So I had 2.5, well, not quite half, the 2 full gallons of milk, and then not quite a half. Someone had used about 6 ounces of milk to make some milk tea, one serving. And then someone had taken about 3 scoops of the ice cream out of one of the 5-quart buckets. So I evened out the ice cream and the milk from the half-gallon jug in between the 2 pots that I used to mix it in. And then I used 5 cans of the mango pulp. They're like the 28 or 30 ounce cans. But I split the 5th can in between the 2 pots, so they pretty much came out evenly. And then I poured that into 2 large buckets, and then a ladle was used to dip out of that. Whereas when I served my compote, I used what looks like a metal measuring cup, or one of those little stovetop coffee pots that just has a handle that sticks straight out. I just used that as an oversized ladle to fill up 3 pitchers. And then I just poured out of those pitchers into little 5-ounce cups. And we use the same cups for serving the mango lassi. You can serve the compote hot or cold, but because it was a hot day, I had intended to make ahead of time and chill it, and then serve it cold with the berries still in it. And so that's what I did. Yeah, see, I can't upload anything solid to you, so you have to go get your own. Replicators are not a thing. Sometimes these cheese spreads, to me, are so salty you don't taste really the cheese, you taste the salt. The jalapeno cheese spread, the jalapenos cut through that saltiness. So I like that one a whole lot better. There's a cheese spread with bacon, but I don't eat that one. I have several packets of that, but they are going to eventually go to someone else. There's more cheese spread in this packet, so I'll just end up sucking that out because I don't want that to go to waste. Because that's just how I am. This applesauce is a lot thinner than your typical applesauce because it's made to be sucked right out of that pouch that I squeezed it out of. It would be good baby food if the cinnamon wasn't as strong as it is. At least I don't think it would be good to give cinnamon to a baby, but because I've never had one, I don't know. And next weekend, we will have food trucks. And I'm hoping that one that I had personally invited will show up because their food is really good. His chicken shawarma is awesome. But as far as I know, he is the only halal food truck in the city. My oldest sister has had food from that truck because they did an event, or a couple of them, at her school. Or I think one at the school that she's been at since August of 1984, and another for a teachers union event that she attended. But because it is a multicultural powwow, trying to get vendors that represent different cultures and countries or regions. That was my idea behind inviting this halal food truck. So I got a copy of the form that he would fill out, and he was excited about it. I told him what weekend it was, and well, I'll try to make sure I got that time free. Okay, see you in a couple weeks, hopefully. Or sooner if you jump in another chat that I may be in. But the camp kitchen, so to speak, there'll be pancake batter and sausages donated by an IHOP. And I think another restaurant has donated some food, and then different committee members or families are going to be taking care of the other meals. And I have said I'll bring some canned fruit, so I got my fruit cans in a box. And I'll either take that with me Friday, along with my personal stuff and the craft supplies that I'm going to take. I've already got those packed up and ready to go. Or if someone wants to come here and get my box of fruit cans and you know and take that, so I wouldn't have to, but it wouldn't be no stretch. It wouldn't be too much of a stretch for me to haul it on Friday because my driver will have already taken her stuff plus other craft supplies there Thursday. But she's got to run back and forth, so she'll come and pick me and my load up on Friday. And another thing I had mentioned that I plan on doing is I will be taking my Opus 600 power station, which I won off of, I think, a Facebook giveaway last year. Actually won it before my apartment got flooded. I had it for like 2 months before that. And then earlier this year, I won a 100-watt Opus solar panel. So I said, for the canopy that is reserved for the elders, if someone has a fan that can be placed there, I could let that run off my power station, put the solar panel onto that, keep that going. And that could last the entire weekend. Because if only the fan is running off of it, it may not even need the charge. But if other things are plugged into it, yeah, then having a solar panel there would definitely help during the day. Yeah, I actually have 2 of those. But what I did for those lights is I charged up the batteries, but then I charged up the 18650 batteries. Then I took it out. I don't keep it in the light. I keep the AAA insert in there. But I have spare 18650s that match the ones that came with that light. So I just keep all those together. Yeah, I ended up with 2 of those lights. And I had asked in one of their live stream chats, if you win the same thing again after you already got it, Alex said, just keep it. So that's how I ended up with 2 of those lights. But the neat thing about these is these tail buttons, they glow in the dark. So yeah, you expose that tail cap, that button, to light long enough, it'll glow in the dark. Not an intensive glow, but it does glow in the dark. Yeah, they're pretty stout flashlights. They call it crenulated bezel. They got a few different modes on them. They don't have a lot of the features that Olights have, and I have a bunch of Olights, but for what they are, and you can buy them on the Opus site. You know, they're decent lights, and like any of my lights that use batteries that can be taken out, I like to keep spares for all of them. Yep. Yeah, it's a good size for that. And you could do with, you know, what I did with one of my Olights, I have it in a magazine pouch, like for a pistol magazine. I mounted that to the side of my get home bag, and then I put that light in there. So you find the right size pouch or holster for it. You can stick that on a belt, you can stick that on the outside of a pack or a sling bag or whatever. Makes it easy to carry a light that size. Yep. Actually got that particular pouch that I have my Olight Warrior Mini in. Actually got like 2 or 3 of those in one bundle, and so I used the other two to put other things in. But yeah, it's a perfect. You find the right size one to fit the light. Yeah, it's a no-brainer. The only drawback with this mix is It's a bit thirst provoking, but I still like it. I just sucked the rest of the cheese out of there. I posted pictures of the food and drink tables yesterday before people started going after everything on Facebook, and someone asked, which country's food is your favorite? And I said, all of it. And someone found these flag ribbons, and they were hung in kind of a crisscross pattern across the room. And then some went along the walls. They're just that long. And at first the idea was to cut them apart and have a flag put on each table where a particular country's food or drink would be. Like, I would have the Polish flag in front of the end of the table that I sat at, where I had my kompot. But it was decided just to keep them on the ribbons and then just string them across the room. And that definitely gave the room a more festive vibe. Plus gave it a little color too. I still have those pictures on my phone, so what I may do is later on tonight, I'll go ahead and post them up in a community post. So for those who are not friends or followers on Facebook, you'll be able to see what kind of a setup we had. Oh, that puppy crust sounds so good. Yeah, I had zucchini, which is one of the menu items from Gersha, Ethiopian restaurant that I frequent. I'm there once a week. And then they did some of the rice. Someone else also had rice. And then someone had a salad, but I didn't get any yesterday, but there was some left, so I put it in a container to bring home. And then I had a Mexican bean salad. And I had a little bit of a pasta salad and some dal, which is cooked lentils. And then next to me was a couple people that had made an Indian street food. I forget what it was called. And then next to them was the mango lassi and the Pakistani food. So I didn't get to sample everything. But I had, someone just went and got some food for me and brought it back to where I was sitting. Which made it easy for me. I didn't care, just put some food on it. Well, the only ex I ever knew was kind of a childhood sweetheart, but as we physically drifted farther apart, meaning I kept moving farther east until I eventually left Nebraska to come back to Iowa. We just decided to part ways. But he never went to Texas. I'm guessing he was probably still in Nebraska. My family kept moving around a lot, so it was just harder to keep in contact, so that's pretty much how that ended. I'm going after this Zapple sauce. I like the cinnamon better than the original. The cinnamon covers up the taste of the maltodextrin. Plus, I think cinnamon would be a good morale booster for the soldier in the field who has to depend on this ration for his or her food for the day. I ate that cinnamon's applesauce and then took a drink of that coffee, and that cinnamon seemed to wake up the flavor of the coffee a bit more. Yeah, in fact, as I've said before, some local coffee shops here will put a salt shaker full of cinnamon on the table or counter where they put the sugar, creamer, and artificial sweeteners. Since a lot of people like to put a shake of cinnamon in their coffee, and I've done that before. I tried it. I like it. But I don't go to coffee shops much these days. I figure I got coffee at home. I'll make my own, and if I want to take coffee somewhere, I'll just fill my travel mug and call it done. Yeah, it definitely is. And to find those 2 bags of caribou coffee for less than $5 each on a Hy-Vee discount shelf, there was no way I was going to pass those up. Heck, I got a good deal on that Maxwell House that I'm currently drinking. I emptied that into one of my plastic Folger containers. So when I finish that off, I'll empty those 2 bags of the caribou coffee into that container. Yeah, I just could not let those 2 bags of caribou coffee get by. They were coming home with me no matter what, even if I had to give something else up for it. Yeah, not all the Hy-Vee stores have a discount shelf, but the one I go to that's near my mosque does. And that's where I've found it and those discounted spices. I still am curious how that Hy-Vee ended up with Walmart spices. There had to be some kind of a logistics mix-up there. And the price sticker that was put on there said damaged rack. But yet the individual containers were perfectly fine. So it just means that I'm guessing, I asked an employee there, and it just basically means that the packaging that those little containers were in was messed up. Sometimes that container can be messed up, but not enough to compromise the contents. Like it could be dented or scratched, or part of the label is messed up. those 6 packs of the little fruit cups or applesauce cups that you get. I've seen those that have been wrapped up and taped up. Sometimes they would have all 6, sometimes there may be 5. One of those would get compromised and have to get ditched. Or there may be 3 of them left. Or whatever, but they package up the individual portions that were not compromised, and then they discount it. And so I've grabbed those. But yeah, how that Hy-Vee ended up with Walmart, great value. Poultry seasoning containers, I don't know, but I got one of them. There are 4 of them there, so I'll let someone else take advantage of this. I'll get one for myself and let other people grab the rest. Yeah, in fact, coffee beans. Yeah, I got a few bags of coffee beans, but I do not have a grinder yet. That is going to be something I plan on getting before the end of the year. I think one of my bags of beans, they're green beans, which means they have not been roasted. Then I have 2 bags of whole bean coffee that is ready to grind. But I do not have a grinder yet, but I will fix that in the near future. Of course, I store up instant coffee. I have some jars, and then I got the packets. When I get the little boxes of the packets, I take the packets out of the boxes and I put them in a Ziploc bag. In fact, the last time I had 3 of those boxes of the Taster's Choice instant coffee. They're like 6 packets in one of those boxes, and you could easily put 8 or 9 in. I got 18 of them into a U.S. Emery beverage bag. I probably got 12 or 14 others in a Canadian beverage bag. Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of instant tea. I have a lot of tea bags. I have, I think, a couple of containers of the Lipton instant tea, but a lot more tea bags. But I will probably add to my stash of instant tea. Another thing that I do when it comes to tea is when I get the boxes that have the tea bags that have not been wrapped, there's a lot of powder that comes off of those. I have actually been collecting that powder as much as I can. And I will empty that into a cleaned out spice bottle. So because that's basically powder, to me that's like instant tea. Yeah, I have a few bricks of Cafe Bustelo. I've been looking for the Folgers in the brick form, but I have not found it lately. But I do see the Cafe Bustelo bricks. So I may get another one of those. I'll just have to see what prices look like when I decide to do that. Yeah, I have had the canned Cafe Bustelo, but if I get the brick, I leave it packaged that way. I don't open that one up. I have a bucket that's filled with nothing but different forms of coffees, and I got a couple of those bricks in there. Yep. That beats paying the high prices for the cold brew coffee mixes or coffee concentrates. I saw an ad for one of those earlier attached to another YouTube video I watched. Why pay the high price for that? You just hot brew coffee and then chill it. That's all you gotta do. In fact, I even experimented with. I made up some G7 3-in-1 coffee, and then I chilled it. I also tried mixing it in cold water, but it doesn't mix as well in cold water as it does with boiling water. But I wanted to experiment with it. Yeah, that would probably be the way to go. Is don't you know, don't buy anything. If you already have it, then once you get into the new place, you can always start building back up again. Plus, you'll be able to decide if you want to do something different. Of course, I got a whole stash of these drink powders, whether from Rations or I just buy them in a store. I got a few of them in my get home bag. I got a few of them in my bag that I take with me daily, when I go out. My big messenger bag that I use as a purse. And then I have another one that is not quite so big that I use when I'm going out with family. I keep a few in there. In fact, I kept my body armor electrolyte drink powders in there when I took that to the lake. Plus, I have some Folgers instant coffee packets in there too. That's just where I stuck them. I'll probably use that smaller one when I go to the powwow next weekend. I won't have some of the items that I usually have in my other one, but I got duplicates of others, like zip ties. I got some strings I can use for whatever I need them for. I keep rubber bands in there. I keep a lighter in there. I keep a pocket knife in there. A small Olight in there. I got a boo-boo kit, but I will be taking another first aid kit with me, a larger one that I'll have in my little suitcase that I'll have my clothes and hygiene kit in. Yep, I've gotten a hold of some of those K-cups. I don't have one of those K-cup brewers, but I have experimented with opening those up and dumping a few of those into the basket of my coffee maker. And they do work. It would take several of those to equal the amount of coffee that I would scoop out of my container. But I have experimented with doing it that way, and it does work. So I do got a sizable stash of those K-cups. Some of them have tea in them, some of them have cocoa mix in them, and I think a few have a cider mix in them. Yeah, I have some that about the size of your average commercial garden seed packet, maybe a little smaller than that. And I've put some of my seeds that I have cleaned and dried myself. I've labeled them, put it in those bags. I actually got those off of eBay. But I'll probably get another pack of that size bag because they are handy. One side is cleared, you can see through it. The other is colored. But those are a good size for putting seeds in. Yeah, there you go. And speaking of freebies, yesterday, while we were setting up, for our food fair, one of the women at my mosque who had gone to a national Muslim organization convention, Islamic Society of North America convention, that was actually in DC. I wasn't sure what it was, but she and her husband had gone to DC for that. And she got a hold of a few cans of sardines in a tomato sauce that are not the flat can. They're about the size of a tomato paste can. She tried one. She really didn't like it, so she let her husband have the rest of that one. So she gave two of them to me. So I have those in my stash. I've had sardines in a tomato sauce before, but they've usually been out of rations. Yeah, like the Taster's Choice packets or the Folgers packets. You can get Cafe Bustelo in those packets as well. Obviously a lot smaller than the G7 packet I opened up. But yeah, I keep a few of those. On me just in case. I gotta have my coffee hit, even if I have to dump it in a water bottle. I got those because I'm leaving those Folgers coffee packets in my purse that I'm going to take with me next weekend. If I just can't wait for the other coffee to brew, I'll just rip into one of them or two. Depending on if I choose to pack my travel mug. I haven't decided what I'm going to do for as far as using that or another cup that I would just keep using over and over again instead of the foam cups which will be provided. Yeah, you just have to figure out how much you want your portion to be. But speaking of portioning, you know those little pill pouches that you can get in packs of 50 or whatever from, say, Walgreens or Walmart or CVS? That would be the perfect size for a single serving of instant coffee. And because it's a Ziploc bag, you can see through it. You can see how much is in there. And you could write on it with a fine point Sharpie. And you could probably use it over again a few times before it just can't be closed anymore. Yeah. See, You can get those little filter baskets for the Keurig or Keurig style. That way you can put the coffee in it that you want, or you could put loose tea in it instead of using those disposable K-cups all the time. I have seen those. The only time I've ever used a Keurig was either at my mom's apartment or in a hotel room. Or speaking of coffee makers, I have not actually brewed coffee in that percolator that I've liberated. But I now have 200 filters for it, so I can do that. I've only done the water test just to make sure that it works. And I ran it on the, it says light or strong setting, so I ran it on the strong setting. And I think what that does is actually bring it to a proper boil. But at least I know it works. Yep, like any of those reusable ones, my little filter basket for the coffee maker that I'm actually using is one from my previous one, because after it quit working and the carafe broke, I got the new one. It didn't come with a filter, so I had that one, and it fits perfectly. Yeah, should it have come with one? Most likely, yeah. But you can actually get replacements of those, and I probably will get a replacement for it just to have as a backup. And I'll probably get another couple of packs of those filters for that percolator. All those are as a disc. It's not a basket type because there are no holes in the side of that. That part where you put the coffee grounds, there's just the holes in the bottom of it. Now this one, I think someone had guessed it was probably from the 80s, based on the brand name. I had never seen one like that before. I mean, I wasn't sure if the cord was even going to work in it or how good a shape it was. I mean, it's in excellent condition. It's not all that discolored on the inside. So yeah, I got myself a backup plan and case the coffee maker that I'm currently using quits working, or I want to make more than enough to fill one of these like 2.5 times. But what I don't have is the kind of percolator that you have to put on a stove. But we use one that's either owned by my mom or by my oldest sister. And then one of my sisters owns the coffee maker that we always take to the lake. When it's not in use, it stays in its box. And then my mom has a thermos that can probably hold a cup almost like 1.5 quarts. And that keeps the coffee hot for a long time. As long as it's not opened, that'll keep coffee hot at serving temperature for at least 6 hours. But that goes to the lake, so the coffee maker gets decaf in it because one of my sisters only drinks decaf. And then the percolator that goes on the stove, the camp stove, gets the regular coffee. But between the two of them, that's enough coffee for all of us adults for the day, basically. And someone got a new 30-cup coffee maker that will be used at the powwow. But I think there's going to be another one. So we'll have both regular and decaf there. I was going to consider offering to take my my electric percolator, but that only has a like 10 or 12 cup capacity. But we can also use those 30-cup coffee makers for just heating up water. Say if someone wants to do oatmeal for breakfast, if they bring their own instant oatmeal. Or just need hot water for something else. But the Blackstone will also be coming out again. But yeah, we're going to be set up good for that. And I think the coffee for the powwow has already been picked up. I don't have any coffee filters that will work for a 30-cup coffee maker, but others do. But I do want to get a stovetop percolator because I know this one that I liberated, saving it from a trip to the dumpster, is a watt hog. I don't know how many watts it uses. I should run it again, but plug it into my kilowatt to see how many watts that thing uses. But I'm pretty sure my Opus power station won't be able to handle it. Yep. We have a couple of 60 cup versions in my mosque supply room. But the problem with running those is some of the outlets really don't have the power to support running them, because we've tried that, and the way the wiring is in that building, the circuits just aren't capable of handling that much power. Some of them may only have, I wouldn't be surprised if some of those circuit breakers are only 10 amp breakers instead of 20. We've had some electrical work done in there, but more needs to be done. Our fridge and freezer in the kitchen are serious watt hogs. Well, when you get commercial models, that's what you're going to get. Yeah. I had a glass top stove where I lived previously, but those are a bugger to clean, even when you have the right stuff to clean it. So I would, I mean, that one did replace the one that was in there previously, which is so old. Instead of knobs to control the burner temperature, you had buttons on the back of the stove. You had to reach over the burner to push the button for the temp that you wanted, and you couldn't make any fine adjustments. Plus, with having a cat that was then a very active cat, I was afraid Mila was going to step on the buttons and turn a burner on without even realizing it. So that one eventually got replaced with the flat top, with the glass top. But another problem with that is if one of the elements craps out, the whole top is shot. Whereas the coil burner, that is a lot easier to repair. course, I would rather have a gas stove, but no chance of that happening here. Thanks for dropping in, Tim. I'm probably going to close this one out pretty soon anyway. Be finishing off my drinks, but for those who missed the live and will be catching the replay, I will not be live next Sunday, the 21st. I will be on my way back from the White Eagle Multicultural Powwow, which takes place at Jester Park in the town of Granger, Iowa. It doesn't take a long time to get there, but I have no idea when I will leave, because I will be hoping to pack things up to get ready to get first loads out that night. So that the larger structures such as the teepees and the canopies and other tents can get taken down on Monday. So the last Sunday of the month, I will come back live, and I will decide in between the week after this coming weekend, I will decide what I will pull out for that stream. I could either do a Canadian IMP. I have 2 of those. I have some 22 and 24 pack emeries. I have some halal emeries, and I have that ratatouille that was sent by Dave, Flat Top Dave, Booger Butt and Booger Butt. I have that one. That is a menu that I have been wanting to get my paws on for quite some time. The name just intrigued me. So now that I have it, I can dig into it. So I could go ahead and do that. I'll just have to make that decision later on. But regardless of whether that one is edible or not, I am still going to enjoy looking that one over. That being that I got other things from him, I'm pretty sure it's still going to be decent. Of course, he sent me another emery to add to my stash as well, so I have that. But the ratatouille was the one that I really wanted to get, and I finally got it, so I look forward to getting into that one. But later on tonight, I'll go ahead and toss a community post up of my table pictures from the International Food Day that we had at my mosque. Not close-up pictures, but, I zoomed in on a couple of them because I was shooting from across the room. But at least you get to see the layout that we had going. But this is the second time we've done that. We are learning each time how we can try to make it better. And I think it's going to be an annual event for us. So again, 2 weeks from tonight, I will be live for the last review of September, and then it will be October already. This year has definitely gotten by. But lots of good stuff to come. At least as far as ration reviews. Well, I'd like to get some more foreign rations. Oh, heck yeah. But I'm getting concerned about one that is stuck at a facility in Indiana. It's been there since the 2nd of this month. I'm concerned that it's either going to be completely obliterated and only the remnants get sent to me, or it's going to be all completely destroyed and all I get is a note in the mail, or I have to go to the FedEx office to pick up a note, or it gets returned to the sender. So I contacted the seller, let him know that it's stuck, and he said that he would try to figure out what's going on, but I haven't heard anything new on that yet. So it's the Polish ration with the real goulash that I've been wanting to find so I can do a proper goulash comparison. Because I still have another goulash Amarie that I've been saving just for that, since the last time I tried it, it was a flop. The goulash that the Ration had wasn't goulash at all. It was a canned lunch meat. A beef luncheon loaf type thing. And the main entree was bigos with kielbasa. A hunter stew with a sausage. It was a beef sausage. But not the Polish goulash that I wanted, so I tried again. I took a risk. And I'm hoping that I at least find out what the heck is going on before I decide to ask the seller if I would get a refund, or if he had another one that he could reship, maybe using another method. As there are none to be had from US-based sellers. So that's why I went ahead and took the risk. Actually paid more for shipping than for the ration itself. Who knows what will happen. But I do want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight for the second meal from this 2019 First Strike and Menu 8. A few hits, a few, yeah, could have been better things, but these are still a good ration to have for when you need to have food that is just open and eat ready. Only thing you would have to prepare would be a drink or 3. And that would be it. Of course, the packaging has since changed since this one was packed. The bag style is different. But the basic concept is the same, and maybe there's some newer items that were not available when these are packed. But I do want to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. But after this coming weekend, if I can get some video from the powwow, I will put that up. Either as a bunch of shorts of individual performances, or I'll just string them all together into one long form video. And I'll have some pictures as well. I'll post, and the community tab as well is on my Facebook. Anyway, thanks for watching, and catch you on the flip side.